Hello, how are you? Welcome to another episode here on the Life Signatures Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, whatever place it is you're tuned onto the show, this is a daily. Every working day you find an episode on three subjects, either of those three subjects: purpose, productivity, or resilience. If you're looking for teaching, if you're looking for instruction, if you're looking for inspiration, if you're looking for something that is going to give you an idea or a concept on those three topics, you find it in these episodes. Thank you so very much for whatever place it is that you tuned onto the show. If it makes sense to you, please, at the end of the show, share it with as many people as you can, because if it does make sense to you, for sure it will make sense to somebody else, and you are like a conduit through which they can be able to get to this message. If you want to contribute to the message, if you want to give back to society, you just click on the link in the show notes. Today we're going to continue talking about what we started, talking about strategic living. How does that even look like? That's what we've been discussing over the past 4 or so episodes, and today we're going to continue talking about that. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut, there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
So I've said several times that being strategic is something that has got to be intentional, because the opposite is to be short-termist. And to be short-termist, we don't need training. We don't need to be told how to think just not past lunch. We don't need to be told how to just focus on the immediate, the urgent, the important, the emergencies. In fact, it's very easy for us to live that kind of a setup. The whole life, we can live like that for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, 80 years, just firefighting, quelling down the fires of the day, or paying the bills for the day, and eating the meals for the day, and sleeping. Now that is not being strategic. But you see, we can do that. People have done that. People have lived their lives like that. And what that does is that it negates, or it limits us. We've been talking about limitations on personal blockades in the past episodes, but this kind of short-termism limits us from becoming the full measure of ourselves. The full measure of our glory is not shown when we live in a short-termist kind of an approach. So we've got to be strategic in our approach to life. We've got to be strategic in our living. How does that look like to begin with? How does it look like to be strategic in our existence? The very first thing that I talked about is that we've got to be people of purpose. We are already people of purpose, but we've got to be people who have identified what that particular purpose is. We've got to know what it is, because we came here with it. We were loaded with it. It was there before we were created, and we were actually created to be able to do it. So the very first thing that we've got to do if we're going to live a life of strategy or a strategic life is we've got to be people of purpose. That means we've got to discover, we've got to own, we've got to deploy, we've got to release our purpose. I discussed that in the previous episodes deeply, so you can go back and check it out. The second thing that we talked about is that we've got to be people who are setting and achieving long-term goals. You see, long-term goals will dictate medium-term goals, they will also dictate short-term goals. In fact, these long-term goals are not just coming from out of the blue. They are coming because we have already reconciled ourselves with our purpose. So our goals are surrounded or are set alongside that particular purpose to buttress it, to pursue it. Number 3, we've got to be intentional in our decision making. Like I've said, one of the most automatic things for life is to be short-termist. We don't need to be taught. It's there. We're existing in it. To change and to become strategic, we've got to make intentional decisions, and we've got to run through those intentional decisions. Number 4, we've got to know how to prioritize and maximize the resources that we have towards the direction of the purpose, maybe towards the direction of the goals that we have also set. That is number 4. And if you want to know more about it, you can go back into the episodes that we talked about and you can check it out. Number 5, we talked about building resilience and adaptability. This is absolutely critical because we are living in a dark and fallen world, and we are not perfect, we're not angels, we're not gods. Okay, of course, someone will technically say, but the Bible says we are gods, but we fail. Very many times we fail. In fact, by the way, the more you are clear about your purpose and what you want to do, the direction you want to take, the more you are aware when you fail. And the more you are aware when you come short. Therefore, we've got to have resilience and we've got to have adaptability built into our lives. Number 6, I want to talk about this today. Then I'll get out of your way. If we're going to live a strategic life, we've got to live a life with a sense of urgency. This is something that I love talking about a lot. We've got to live with a sense of urgency. In fact, if you look back in the series, the series that we've done over the past several months, maybe years, we talked about urgency in a big time series. We've got to live with urgency. We've got to live with focus. We've got to live with balance. Those 3 things. Let me start with urgency. What is urgency? It is the knowledge that we are on a mission and we don't have time. We don't have 200 years to pursue a million things. So I'm going to come about and talk about focus and come about and talk about balance also. But urgency tells us that we are on a mission and time is ticking. Time is moving. Every day that is not utilized towards the direction that we're supposed to take in life is a day that we will never see again. It's a day that is gone. So the urgency means that we are timetabling ourselves. We are setting ourselves time and we are allocating decisions and actions that we're supposed to do within that particular time. And we are so militant about this that we cannot fathom losing a day, let alone a week, let alone a month. And I'm not saying that we should not go on vacation. I'm not saying that we should not rest. No, rest and vacation are smack in the middle of urgency. The guy who has a lot of urgency will also need a lot of rest, a lot of reflection, a lot of relaxation. So it's crafted in there. But also we've got to have a lot of focus, which is already inclined into the direction we're taking to be strategic. Now, when I talk about focus, I want to balance it with the word balance. These days you hear the word work-life balance. So much so that sometimes we are dialing the edge, the cutting edge of our productivity, because we get engaged in very many things that are not speaking into the direction that we want to take. We are massaging very many things. So in the name of work-life balance, you find yourself you're doing some things that you're not even supposed to do at the expense of strategic living, at the expense of the focus you're supposed to take. See, while living strategically often involves ambition and focus on achieving goals, it also emphasizes that there's gotta be some kind of balance. I agree. And truly, strategic life considers all dimensions of our personal existence. I've talked about these things like your career, your health, your relationships, your mental well-being, and your personal fulfillment. These are things that we cannot take for granted. These are fundamental basics. But sometimes when people talk about balance, they want to go onto a different tangent where they want to start bringing in things that were not even there initially, to mean that all things are important. Even the things that are not strategic, that they are supposed to be focused on. No, that's not the kind of balance that we're talking about. We're talking about balance that brings into effect the things that are important in us being strategic, and the things that are important in us activating our lives to the fullest. So that's where our health comes in. That's where our relationships come in. That's where our purpose itself comes in. That's where our mental well-being itself comes in. So when we take this holistic, it's an individual, it's basically like we are recharging ourselves, we're taking care of ourselves. I think it's someone who said that the body is the only place where we live. So gotta take care of it. That's where holistic balanced life comes in. That even as I speak, I'm just rebuking myself. I've got to take care of my health, not just mentally but even physically. My nutrition, my sleep, they've got to be top-notch important things in my life. Well, so when you talk about balance, those are the things we are talking about. We're not saying that when you're talking about balance, you're talking about trying to do very many other things. No, you're living a focused life. It is walking on a tightrope, basically. It's like you're walking on the edge where you have kind of like single-mindedness on something to accomplish that particular purpose. Therefore, I will say it again like I said it in the previous episodes where Tony Robbins was telling people that we have very many purposes. No, we don't. We have very few. It's a one strategic kind of a life. Apple doesn't have very many purposes. Nokia did not have very many purposes. Okay, you can say Elon Musk has very many purposes. When you get down to it and you talk to the man, you'll find that it's just one guiding principle that has made him to do very many other things. But it doesn't come to being, chasing very many things that are unrelated. Many of the things that this man is doing are totally connected and totally related. And it's his focus, his maniacal strategic focus that gives birth to some of these tangents, which are also important. So if we're going to talk about a strategic life, let us also talk about urgency. Let us also talk about focus, but also let us talk about our own balance. The balance reduces risk of burnout and it creates a more sustainable, fulfilling lifestyle so that we can continue focusing on the strategy that we have set. Tomorrow, we'll bring this small session to a close. But until then, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.